Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. While we're letting everyone trickle in, please do feel free to pop in the chat where you're tuning in from. As always, I'm here in Halo HQ in sunny Stowmarket, southeast of England. Dimitri, where are you? Where are you calling in from?
Hey everyone, I'm located in sunny Cyprus actually.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, I think that not so many people are aware where it is, but it's a really beautiful tiny island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, between Turkey, Egypt. So yeah,
Mm.
it's
I've,
it's like a paradise.
it really is. I can vouch for that. I've been a couple of times myself.
Oh.
Yeah, I love it there. It's probably a little bit more sunny than it is in the UK.
Absolutely, we have around 330 sunny days a year, so that's
Nice,
that's nice.
nice. Oh, nice. Hey, Nick. It's a familiar name. Ah, Mike, how's it going? Yeah, cool. Well, while we let a few more people trickle in, we'll get started with some housekeeping. Um, First things first, if you couldn't make the live webinar today, not to worry. You're probably watching this on YouTube right now, so the webinar is being recorded and will be shared with everyone after the fact. Um, as you're all sort of popping messages in the chat, feel free to put anything you want in the chat. But it is worth noting that there is a dedicated Q&A section just on the bottom banner there. So if you do have any specific questions that you would like Dimitri or myself to answer, please do pop those in the Q&A section. We're going to try and dedicate a little bit of time towards the end of the webinar specifically for those questions. And yeah, welcome everyone. Joined with Dimitri from MSP360 here, and doing a slightly different one today. Lots of webinars talking about just slamming as much automation into your systems as possible, but we thought we'd frame this slightly differently and think about how can you actually find the right balance between manual work and automation, and at what point does automation actually cause a hindrance as opposed to a benefit. So yeah, Dimitri, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan, for having us. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks, everyone, for attending this webinar. I hope that you will find a lot of useful information. So, yeah, today we will just start talking about HaloPSA. Then I will share some information about MSP360, and then we will go into the educational part, where we'll cover a lot of different aspects about the automation, and some other things. I believe that Morgan and I would do our best to provide you some insights. And if you have any questions, as Morgan mentioned, please always feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box. We are here for you, and we will do everything to make it useful for everyone. So I think that, Morgan, I believe you can get started with
Absolutely.
HaloPSA. There may be some people from MSP360 because we advertise it on MSP360 side and on the HaloPSA side as well. So maybe someone doesn't know who you are. So I think that it's always nice to say about your company.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing these webinars for a few years now, and a few years ago, it was definitely the case that not many people knew about Halo at all. But over the recent years, that has really changed. And one of the things for those of you that aren't familiar with Halo, or maybe you've heard our name in the space, and perhaps you sort of see us as the new kid on the block, so to speak. But one of the most shocking facts about Halo is actually we've been around for a lot longer than it may seem. Hiring our first employee in 2007. Um, Now, from that time until about sort of 2019, 2020, we were actually running a Windows-based help desk application. So you may not have heard of Halo, but you may have heard of Net Help Desk. And then, yeah, it was about sort of 6, 7 years ago now that the we rebranded, took that Windows-based help desk application, built upon the things that we had done well in there, had an opportunity to think about redesigning some of the things that we weren't doing so well, and we launched with Halo, and we were really sort of hit the ground running when we did that relaunch. So came to the scene with a modern, intuitive platform but 20 years worth of functionality under the hood. Now, as of today, we're a global company. As you can see, I mentioned I'm here in sunny Stowmarket, where Halo HQ is, but we've actually got offices all over the world in Melbourne, Australia, Melbourne, Florida, in Washington State, and satellite offices in Dubai and India as well. Now, what we do here at Halo is quite simple, really. We sell, support, implement, deliver a single platform, the Halo platform. But that platform's actually diverse enough to satisfy a variety of different markets. So, of course, while we're here talking about HaloPSA, we actually have our sister company, Halo ITSM, that is tailored more for the enterprise, is actually in direct competition, winning more deals than we're losing from ServiceNow currently, which is quite exciting. And then more recently, as of sort of a year and a half ago, Halo CRM, that's tailored more for sort of service delivery teams and B2C setups. Now, why that's important for the audience to know is the Halo platform, HaloPSA, ITSM, CRM, and any other future Halo product that we release actually all shares the same underlying code base. And what that means for our MSPs is they can be rest assured that when they use HaloPSA, they are using an enterprise grade platform, a tool that they can use and something that can grow with them and moreover help them grow. Now, with regards to what we do being simple, that's not just in our development stance, but also in the way that we package up the product, right? So what we deliver here at HaloPSA is a sort of fully fledged, mature PSA platform with everything included as standard. So there's no hidden features, there's no locked away fees. If you want to enable a new module, you just go in and you turn it on. And it actually makes our account management calls a lot more straightforward because you can know that your account manager is not trying to sell you anything, right? There's nothing more to sell. Everything that you see here on the screen and more is included in that per seat license price. And yeah, that's just a little bit about Halo. Of course, if you are interested in knowing more about what Halo do, you can go to our website, halopsa.com, and start a free trial. No commitments. You don't even have to have a demo. Go and check it out for yourself. And if you're interested in speaking with a member of the team, then our email is there, sales@halopsa.com.
All right. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, Morgan, very much. Actually, from MSP360 side, and I'm going to make some brief introduction about our company in a minute. But in a recent maybe 3 years, we heard a lot about HaloPSA from our customers. And actually, last year, it was a real boom with the number of customers asking like, hey, we need the integration with the HaloPSA. So there is a really growing interest to your company, to your services. There is a big demand. And basically, that's the reason why we introduced this integration between HaloPSA and MSP360. We are better together by all means. And that's also one of the reasons why we are making this webinar today. But first things first, let me just tell you a few words about MSP360. I believe that some of the audience may know something about us, maybe someone does not. So I'd like to start that our company was founded just 1 year after the HaloPSA was. We were founded in 2008, and our previous name is Cloud Bureau Lab. So maybe someone heard about us, I'm sure. But anyway, at the same time, we started as the cloud native backup solution. Our headquarters is located in North America, but we also have different offices around the globe. We also have an office in Cyprus, where I am located. We have an office in Dubai, in Armenia. So there are about 15,000 active customers right now using our services. So it's been a really long way for us. Most of our customers are located in the United States, but we also have quite big presence in Europe, and we are also expanding there. So yeah. So today, MSP360 offers several backup products for Windows, Linux, macOS, as well as Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, which becomes more and more popular also nowadays. And we also have 2 additional products that are quite essential to MSPs and actually internal IT teams. I'm talking about the RMM, Remote Management and Monitoring, and Connect application that allows you to actually make the remote session connection to the endpoints if for some reason the RMM is not enough for you. Just a few marketing words about what makes MSP360 better. Well, first of all, it's the single pane of glass with all tools that I just mentioned were built full in-house, so we didn't acquire anything. We also have the the core of our RD team is working from the very beginning of the company, and our customers like us because it's everything under one roof. You need a backup, it's here. You need RMM, remote management, it's here. You need to make a connection. You just press one button in your on the endpoint. It's very easy to use the licenses, and the price is also quite competitive and affordable. We don't require any long-term contracts compared to some of our competitors. We don't require you to go with yearly subscription, so it's very flexible. Any options are possible, and it's really quite easy to configure. And you don't need to do almost anything but just install the application, go through the first setup. That takes just a couple of minutes, and you're fully covered. So in any case you need any assistance from our side, please always feel free to reach out to us, and we will do our best with no additional sales because, as Morgan mentioned, the same approach with a HaloPSA. Everything isn't there. You just need to enable it and use it. So yeah, that's all good. And I also see the question from the chat, can we back up to a server in Canada? And the answer is, of course, yes. So MSP360 supports the backup into the cloud storage of your choice. So we do not lock your data in our data centers. You select which data center you want to go with because it's more affordable in many cases to use your cloud. It can be Wasabi, it can be AWS, it can be Microsoft Azure with the data centers almost all over the world. So there are a lot of data centers of AWS, for example, in the United States, of course, but there are also data centers in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America as well as some other countries. And it's also possible to use any S3 compatible storage. So you always know where your data is. You have the full control over your data. And again, in some cases, it might be even cheaper to go with the cloud storage that you have control with instead of going with the storage that is provided by the backup vendor. But anyway, we're not going to talk a lot about the backups today, but we'd like to make some additional focus on the RMM and Managed Connect, which we offer from MSP360 side. So I'm sure that more than 90% of you use an RMM, and you definitely know what it is, but maybe there are a couple of people here who don't know what is that. So the RMM is the remote management and monitoring solution, and it allows MSPs and internal IT teams to be proactive because it allows you to react on some issue before you may even notice that, or before you get an idea that something went wrong. Because how do you usually know that something went wrong? You got a phone call from the end person saying like, hey, my computer doesn't work. So with an RMM, it's possible to configure quite important sensors that we will also talk today a little bit later. But it's possible to know what's going on with your systems before people will even notice that, before the issue may actually be found by somebody. So it also allows you to apply some level of automation, which we'll really discuss in more details later today, because the automation is the key, but it's quite important to use it in the right way. So the RMM allows you to automate some actions on the technical side. The PSA has its own layer of automation that we will also cover today, but the RMM gives you the automation with the script execution or the remediation on the endpoints. Just as a simple example, for example, the business critical service has stopped on the endpoint, the RMM finds it out, and the RMM automatically restarts that service because it's a business critical application. So that's just as easy as possible. And there are some other things that are included with an RMM. the only thing that I maybe want to add in here is that MSP360 offers the RMM with the license per administrators, basically for technicians with the unlimited number of endpoints. And we also have the community edition, which is a fully functional with some limitation on the number of endpoints that we have. But if you haven't tried it yet, it would be good to have it a chance. So Morgan, I think that this might be covered the best of all by you. Why does anybody needs a PSA if we have somebody from MSP360?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say fundamentally, a PSA is the control center for your entire business, right? It is the place where you as an MSP know exactly what is going on throughout the entirety of your business. Those alerts that you just mentioned, Dimitri, you're going to want to know that alerts are coming in so you can proactively work on them, but where do they go? And how does the whole team see those alerts? So the PSA is really that centralized hub that allows your whole team to get a full picture of what everyone at the business is getting on with, within reason, of course. And what I mean by that is if people are just working from individual mailboxes, that support is not going to be shared, knowledge is not going to be transferred amongst the team, and ultimately your customers are not going to have an optimal experience. So again, that your PSA, whether it's HaloPSA or any of the others in the space, should be the place where you go to know that this is your business's operating system, effectively. Now, off the back of that, there are various automations that you would expect as standard from a PSA that's going to allow you to take the data from those different systems, take license and subscription information from Pax8, for example, or take users from managed Entra tenants, receive alerts from MSP360, pull in managed devices. And when you have that complete snapshot of your entire ecosystem and all of your customers' ecosystems at that, you can then start understanding precisely where you are in terms of the engagement with the customer. And I mean from the perspective of profitability. So you can start extracting information like effective hourly rates, because again, your whole team are working out of your PSA on a day-to-day basis. Halo or any other PSA, any other leading PSA, let's say, is going to have that automatic time tracking natively built into the system. So as your team are working on tickets, providing support to your customers, Halo is constantly in the background recording that time. And so you're going to have an understanding of the time and effort that your team is spending, again, across the business and on a customer by customer basis. And then, of course, as well, having that platform that is central to all of the entities that you're going to ultimately be invoicing your customers for, you're going to expect your PSA to have an invoicing engine. So the PSA is also conventionally the place that generates those invoices that go over to your accounts package, whether that's QuickBooks, Xero, Sage, Cashflow, or any of the others. But again, it's that centralized hub that is going to allow you to extract the metrics that you need to extract to assess precisely where you are as a business and precisely where you're going. Now, as Dimitri mentioned there, there is, while we're talking about automation here, there is a slight discrepancy or a slight distinction in terms of the types of automation that we might be talking about. So, in the context of your PSA, the automations that you might be thinking about are going to be, automated service level agreement reminders. You want to automate your SLA timings, automated time tracking, as I just mentioned a moment ago, automated billing reconciliation. So automatically generating those invoices with the correct cost, price, and quantity based on the information that is coming in from those integrated systems. And ultimately, automating process management, automating your incident and request flows, automating approvals for change requests, things like this. But it's all about the day-to-day work, and that's slightly different from the types of automations that you would expect from your backup solution or from your RMM. But of course, Dimitri, I'll hand it back over to you to talk about those.
Yep, thank you very much, Morgan. And we will have a dedicated slide about this difference between the RMM automation and PSA one, because
Mm.
it's really quite important to understand. And both of them, they are designed actually to help MSPs and maybe in some cases internal IT teams, because the automation is really quite popular thing nowadays. But at the end of the day, that's just a time saver, and that's the convenience and the actually reducing the chance of making a mistake, because if it's properly automated, then it means that you can just ensure that everything goes according to your flow as you want it to be, trying to minimize the human mistake, which is still actually happens from time to time. And actually, from my side, I can even say that when it comes to the backup part, still the most important reasons to have a backup, for example, is still a human mistake, a human error when someone deletes a file. So of course, the backup is quite important security tool that can also restore your data when it comes to the disaster recovery or cyber activities with the ransomwares and so on. But still, the most popular reason when someone needs a backup is still a human mistake. So the automation can also lower the chance of having one. So you just need to have the right processes, and by having them described, you can automate them, and that's where the PSA can be really, really useful. And getting back to the RMM, I just want to mention a couple of other things. I already said that so we have the unlimited number of endpoints with only one administrator license. That also includes MSP360 Connect application, the one that allows you to connect into the Windows computer or Mac OS one if the RMM for some reason is not enough. It's fully managed from MSP360 console. So do you need to know about the CPU status, CPU temperature? Do you need to know the IP address? It's there. Do you need to find a specific user that is currently connected to the endpoint? You just find it in there, and you can make a connect right from MSP460 Connect application. And this has the integration with a HaloPSA, where you can have all of the assets with MSP460 applications installed. They will propagate into the HaloPSA, and there will be a connect button, so you can connect either from MSP460 part or from the HaloPSA and some other things. In case of the backup failed, the ticket would be created if you configure so. You can also keep track of some important metrics of your technical environment, such as, again, CPU usage or some other aspect, and create a ticket. Now, we will go that in a little bit more things, but RMM, in a nutshell, is still quite useful solution that allows you to be aware of everything what happens technically with your endpoints. But in addition to everything, it's also the patch management. I think that the patch management is one of the most important part with an RMM solution that can ensure that all of your systems are fully updated with the most recent updates from Microsoft or from the third-party applications. It allows you to execute script for further automation. You can also create the script libraries to make the automation even more advanced. And of course, it has some additional features, some advanced ones, for example, SNMP monitoring, or even Wake on LAN, remote reboot, and some other things that can actually help you to be quite successful. So I think that it's quite important, again, to go through why the RMM is better with the PSA, better together, because this is just a simple example. RMM, remote management and monitoring from MSP360 side, can create an alert. For example, as I mentioned, the CPU usage is quite high. So the ticket is automatically created. You set the priority category, you define who should be assigned to, so the right person gets it immediately. So the RMM piece creates the alert, but the PSA records that and routes it to the right person. So that is just like as an example. And another thing, a new device comes online. So you have new employees, you have a new company that you are going to provide your services to. So you install the RMM part, and the same device gets automatically registered with the PSA side. So you have everything aligned with the contracts, with everything else, what you need with them. And it actually speeds up the onboarding time. So that's where the PSA and RMM can do some job together. Morgan, do you want to add maybe something in here?
Um, I, all I would say really is I think that uh, the PSA, as I mentioned, is a fundamental platform for the MSP to use, and as is the RMM. And so, making sure that if you have a PSA and RMM, those are integrated and talking with one another, I
Hmm.
think that's very important, and probably why you were receiving so many requests to integrate with Halo.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely true. I fully agree with you. All right, so let's move on. I think that I will skip this slide for now because I think it's more than enough talking about MSP360. And let's go into the educational part about the automation. So today, Morgan and I would cover four quite important topics. So when the automation hides a problem, what is the difference between the actual signal and the noise? Because, of course, the RMM can create too many alerts, but it can really bombard your mailbox with thousands of emails. So how to find out what is a signal, what do you really need to care about, and what is the actual noise? Then Morgan would also cover a few things about metrics that reveal failure. And then together, Morgan and I would come with different free things to automate first. I would cover the RMM part, and Morgan would cover the same about the PSA one. So let's get started with the first topic, when automation hides a problem. So the RMM automation usually what happens on the device. So again, that can be the patch deployed successfully, the service restarted on failure, some other things, but the PSA type of automation does a little bit different thing. It creates ticket, routes them, it creates the right escalations, it follows the SLAs, it executes different processes with onboarding, with billing, and so on. While the RMM part creates everything about what happens technically on the endpoints. Unfortunately, RMM cannot create the ticket on itself because the ticketing system is a little bit different. It's a side thing. So that's what we need to understand. What's the difference between the automation on the RMM side and on the PSA side? So we can work again together better, but we just need to understand what can be automated on the RMM side and what is the automation on the PSA one. So quite important things about the automation that sometimes something may happen, but actually it's not the automation. Something where the automation can do not worse, but maybe where it's not so efficient. For example, the silent failure. The script that can automatically be launched upon some specific sensor, one of my favorite, again, example, CPU usage, utilization, you will hear several more times, I'm sorry about that. But the CPU just goes too crazy. You may have some script, for example, to kill some process on your endpoint. The ticket is not created. The system, the RMM, actually fixes it by its own, but does it actually resolves the root cause? So it may happen over and over again, but just out of blues, it turned out that you just need to update to the newer version, for example. So you just missed that because you were using the outdated version, and you just not followed that. You didn't update the application or you didn't know about that, something may happen. So the automation may actually not reveal some of the options. It would fix the problem. But it would not fix the root cause. And that's where the automation can actually create something bad. Another example is when there is a run threshold set. So you may have a lot of noise, and that's what may happen. Like in this fairy tale, as I think all of you know about crying wolf. So you will see a lot of different alerts, but how to detect that there is the right one? How to know that, okay, this might be ignored and this is something real that requires a lot of attention. So that's where the automation, at least with the alert side, may create some problems, and that's where the automation can cause some problem. Morgan, I think that the auto close illusion is something what you wanted to cover.
Yeah, so I mean it's very similar to what Dimitri was just saying there, from the RMM perspective, but you have to make sure that your tickets, your incidents, your alerts are actually being closed with a proper closure, right? And what I mean by that is uh, while you may want to have automated reminders being kicked off in your PSA and tickets closed after a certain period of time if no response has been provided, you may want to consider what that actually means for whether or not the problem has been resolved or not. Because your customer is no longer engaging with you on that ticket doesn't necessarily mean that the problem they've had has gone away. In fact, it could have got worse. They may actually be trying, but having this problem solved by a different MSP, right? So while it's important to make sure that uh, people, both parties, the MSP and the customer, are constantly up to date with the ticket, where it's at, and what action is needed, you may want to consider not automatically closing these tickets off without ensuring that proper resolution has been provided. So yeah.
Yep, thank you. And actually, quite similar is about the blurred accountability. For example, the RMM worked perfectly and created the right alert. It's routed the ticket to the right person addressed it perfectly. But if nobody actually analyzes the problems, if no one actually is taking the right action, the right approach, okay, we had, for example, for example, I don't know, 100 tickets last year about this specific issue only. So do we need to do something about that? So that might also be addressed to some automation that is actually lies somewhere between the PSA and the RMM. So you have the alert, it's worked. You have the technician who also resolved the issue, who did that, but something is still broken. You do not fix again the root cause, and you just need to ensure that the root cause is always detected, that you analyze what's going on, and that's where the automation can fail. It's more about the processes, but still it's quite important. And there are some other options where the automation can not work really as you expect, and where it can cause some problems. And I also wanted to cover a couple of things about the patch management. It's just as one of the examples. For example, the patch management is automated. So you install the list Windows updates on a regular basis. So all critical updates are installed automatically. But metrics looks green. So all of your computers are fully updated. But then Microsoft releases something. I'm sorry about saying about Microsoft. I just suppose that the majority of people use Microsoft, so nothing is wrong with Microsoft, but sometimes it happens. And just one day, you wake up in the morning and you realize that nobody can print documents in the office because Microsoft shipped some update that broke the connection with the printer. So all of the computers are green. The automation worked perfectly. It did what you asked it to do, but it did it worse because all computers now are broken and you need to roll back them all. So what is this fix here in this specific example? And this is really quite important because the patch management automation is one of the most important parts of RMM automation. So that's why it's always good to make the staged deployment, so-called stage deployment, or patch rings, where you first install it on some sandbox server, you test it, and you ensure that it's all good. Then you start updating the non-critical endpoints. Quite frequently, it's the workstations. And then when everything is tested properly, nothing bad happened, you roll it out on the production environment on all of the other endpoints, usually servers actually. So it's also the automation, but it's just another approach how you can automate the things. And of course, it's also possible to do with MSP360. It's also possible to make the sandbox. It's possible to defer the updates. So it's also possible to keep track. It's also possible to back up the endpoints in case something went wrong. So you can restore back to your server. And of course, with the HaloPSA, you can create the tickets and you can keep track of everything was going on. So again, that's the place where we are literally better together. So another quite important thing about the automation, what to automate, what still requires the manual operations, at least from the RMM side. So the simple answer is really simple. If the action is safe to run without the human approval, then you can automate it. But if you need some sort of the manual intervention, real human work, you may need to still just create a ticket and assign it to the right person. For example, a service has stopped. You create a ticket, but it would be much faster and much easier just to restart a service. You still can record that issue as a ticket for the further analysis, but can you automate the service restart? Of course, yes. Or can you just clean the temporary files in case of the space run out on your system? So the C drive is fully utilized, so there is no space on the endpoint. So is it possible to at least run a simple script to clear the temp files? Of course, yes. So, and on the opposite side, what still requires the human intervention? The first option, the backup job failed. Of course, it's possible to retry that and just simply restart the failed job. But, believe our experience at MSP360, in most cases, you still need to do something differently because in most cases, the retry will not fix it because, for example, you change the credentials of your local storage and you're trying to back it up with the wrong credentials. So can you automate that? Well, in quite rare situations, maybe. But in most cases, unfortunately, you need to do something manually. So that cannot be automated. And on the slide here, you can see some additional reasons. Additional things that can be and cannot be automated. This is just an example, but again, the idea is simple. If it would not make more harm by automating something, then automate it. But if the potential harm can be more than any profit, then please don't automate it. At least at first, and then after revealing some patterns by analyzing the tickets in a HaloPSA, you can also consider making some automation. But still, some of the things cannot be automated. Smart disk warning, so nothing to automate. You just have maybe bad sectors on the HDD or SSD. Well, HDD, I'm sorry. And you need to physically replace that failed hard disk drive on the computer, and so on. So quite important thing that the gap between the RMM and PSA exists, and that's where you can also configure some of the automation that still requires your attention. So basically, the script failure, that might be also the invisible problems. The patch compliance problem. So you see that the number of endpoints is declining over and over again, and that's where the PSA would be quite useful for you. So yes, you can also see that in information with an RMM, but it's still better to ensure that everything is kept tracked with the PSA system. The number of growing the agents offline is also quite important to be analyzed. Why is that happening? Why the auto recovery doesn't work? What do you need to do? So again, the transition between the RMM and PSA creates a gap, and that creates a quite important setup. But the good news is that it's quite easy to configure. It takes maybe just a couple of hours, but once it's well configured, it would work perfectly for you, ensuring that you may rely on your systems and sleep well during night, because if something happens, you know what it is. It's tracked, it has the right priority, it has the right place, it has the right people, so you have nothing to worry about. So just pay attention to these warning signs, most of all with an RMM. So something went wrong with the script remediation, meaning automation doesn't work. Patch management goes down, so you don't have the systems updated. That's bad. The agents are offline. That means that either the computer is turned off, or it may mean actually that there is some problem on the endpoint with the network or something else. So the offline agent doesn't only mean that the system is turned off. Mm. And that's where the RMM can be quite useful together with the PSA, and that's how you can benefit from that. So the next topic is the signal versus noise. So receiving thousands of emails is literally a noise. Because not all of these things require a human intervention, a human action. So the easiest answer here also is, mm, does your technician needs to do anything with that? If the answer is no, then it's a noise. So if you need to do something with that, then that's a call to action. Go and change the HDD. Go and restart the server physically. Go and replace something. But if the text doesn't need that, why do you need to receive that? And that's where you can actually route it to another category or another priority. So you still need to keep track of these actions again, but it's still a noise that blurs your focus and again creates that situation with the crying wolf. The same actually goes with the abnormal behavior of your computer. So if the usual CPU ratio, CPU utilization is 25%, but just out of blues you have a spike that went up to 85, 90%, then it's a signal. But if your system constantly works on a high level, so the difference between 85 and 90 would not be that significant. Of course, 85 and 100 may be something off, but still, you may just want to configure the right thresholds so you would not be actually disturbed by something that is normal. So yes, CPU utilization at 85% might be quite too much, but if it's expected, then it's good. Another thing that let's suppose that there is a power outage in the office, so all of the computers went off, and you received hundreds of emails saying that the agent is offline, so we cannot communicate with the system. You received hundreds of emails, but they are all related to one specific issue. It's not individual 100 incidents, but you receive 100 tickets. So you just need to understand that the time of the issue and the actual pattern is the same. So you can merge these tickets. You can just solve them as a one incident. So it's not 10, no, it's not hundreds. It's just one incident, and you just need to solve it one and just turn or just wait until the power goes back. So that's simple. And of course, there are some other things with the quarterly rule audit because if something doesn't really work, then maybe you don't need it. So maybe that doesn't mean that it works at all. Maybe it's configured incorrectly. Because if something doesn't work for a long period of time, maybe not 90 days, maybe it's 1 year for your case, but it still requires an audit. So it's quite opposite to a noise, but it creates the complication with an RMM settings, and maybe it's either the wrong configured or it doesn't make any sense to be done. So that's what I'd like to cover something on this topic. Morgan, is there anything maybe that you'd like to add in here?
No, no, I think you covered it very well. I mean, where where I think it's important to notice how automations might be having a negative effect on your business is on some of the key metrics that you might find in your PSA. So if you want to hop onto the next slide, please, Dimitri.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, so I, I mean, I think first and foremost, a really simple one and quite stark is those reopen rates, right? So it goes back to what we were saying a moment ago with those auto closures and tickets being closed off, not always necessarily denoting that the problem has been resolved or the request has been fulfilled. A great way to identify how effective you are at actually closing those tickets off by resolving the underlying issue is observing those reopen rates. So if you have a high closure rate, then that's great. But if a high rate of those are being reopened, then you might want to rethink about what what it's going to take from your side to constitute that ticket as being completely closed. Um, of course, one of the other key automations inside of your PSA is around your triage, your dispatch, your routing, right? Who is the ticket going to? Um, Now, if you're finding the tickets have got a high rate of escalation, then what that's going to be indicating is the where those tickets are first landing is not the place where they need to be. So look at those reopen rates, look at those reassign rates, and if those are high, then you want to, and when I say high, I'm thinking you shouldn't really your reopen rate, I don't think should be more than 15%. Anything higher than that, then you want to rethink about you want to rethink what that closure procedure looks like. Escalation rate, I think that can be higher. But if over half of your tickets are being escalated, then that is a strong indicator that those tickets are not going where they need to be in the first place. And ultimately, that's just wasting time, right? Of course, there's the benefits of a training component, which you might want to take into account. How long if the ticket has been escalated, who is the person doing the escalation? How long have they been a part of the team? To what extent should they know the answer to the question that they're requiring escalation for? But outside of those metrics, yeah, you want to observe those escalation rates. Uh, Another one that's slightly less obvious is around the self-service portal, right? So going back to what I mentioned at the start of the webinar, Halo being a single platform that leverages enterprise-grade functionality that's used for our Halo ITSM counterpart means that our MSPs get the benefit of those enterprise configurations, including an enterprise-grade self-service portal. Now, a self-service portal is a really powerful mechanism, a really powerful way of ensuring that your customers are giving you the information that they need to give you in order for the request to be fulfilled, right? If we're thinking about a new user onboarding, you're going to want to make sure that you get all of the necessary data points to make sure that the user is given the correct license, the correct start date, correct name, email, that kind of stuff, as opposed to just receiving an ad hoc email saying, I've got someone joining next week. Can you help me set that up? And beginning that game of email tennis, right? Um, Now, I actually see the self-service portal quite underutilized in the MSP space, likely because it's quite rare for a PSA platform to have an enterprise-grade self-service portal simply bolted on. But again, thinking about how can we most effectively serve our customers. The self-service portal is a fantastic way of doing that. Not necessarily so your customers can close their own tickets, but so that information lands in your service desk, pre-formatted, good to go, and ready for those automations that you do have inside of Halo to actually work, right? Because those data points have been populated. So if you're seeing a drop in engagement in your self-service portal, you may want to have a rethink about, what is that portal experience like for your customers? Maybe, you know, excuse me, maybe reach out to a couple of key contacts. Ask them for their feedback. Why are they not using the portal? What would they like to see in the portal? If there was something in there that they don't currently have, would they go to the portal more often? Questions like that. Now, uh, a couple of key metrics inside of your PSA that can sometimes be misleading is mainly around your SLA compliance, right? So your SLAs, your service level agreements are tracking how quickly are you responding to tickets and how quickly are those tickets being closed off. But that's not necessarily a direct indicator of how effective your team are at providing support and service to your customers. So, for example, if you have a low time to resolve, that's great. However, those might be false stats. These might be internal tickets. It might be alerts that are being auto resolved. It might be service tickets that are not actually having much engagement with end customers and getting auto closed. And that's all going to lead to an increase in those closed ticket stats. but again, not necessarily a direct one-to-one with good customer service. And it's easy when looking at these metrics to kind of slip into the trap of gamification, right? How do we get our SLA to 99.5%? That's the wrong question. The right question is, how do we deliver exceptional service to our customer base? And if that means that a ticket is open for longer because you're engaging with the customer trying to solve a complex issue, so be it. Don't auto close that ticket. Don't close a ticket until you're confident that it can be closed. And yeah, so those are just a couple of metrics that you might find in your PSA that uh, indicate something looks good at the surface level, but again, if you think about it in a little bit more detail, you might want to reframe those questions, and as a result, reframe the metrics that you see there. Um, and yeah, I think that's that for the PSA what to watch. Um, Approaching the hour now, so I want to make sure that Dimitri and I have a little bit of time to actually talk about what automations we do want to see our MSPs use. So Dimitri, I mean, if there were free automations that you would recommend your MSPs and MSPs in general leverage from
Mhm.
MSP360, what would those be?
Yeah, thank you very much, Morgan. This is a really very, very good question. And here's the answer. So, of course, the first thing and the most important one is the patch management. It's always crucial to have your system updated. Otherwise, they can become vulnerable, and it may cause some potential problems. Some some outdated applications may have some issues with the security, and having all system updated actually allows you to also sleep well. But here's another catch: just ensure that you apply these stages. So you have the sandbox, you have early adopters, and you have the production. Automate that, and that is really one of the most important parts with the RMM automation. Speaking about alert and ticket routing is another thing, because if the ticket does not actually is not created, then how would you find that out that something happened? Of course, you may have different alerts, but the alert is just an email saying that, okay, something is wrong. So having a ticket is important. And what might be actually maybe even more important, to make the right mapping about the priorities, about the types, about the right people who will get into. So don't put everything in one basket. So just ensure that you have it right mapping. And that would actually be quite important. So this is somewhere between the RMM and PSA, but it's still the automation that would actually save you a lot of time and a lot of money, of course. And the last but not least is the client device onboarding. So of course, the one of the most complicated parts, every always actually, is just to get started. So you can install the RMM agent, and that agent will propagate into the PSA. So the track is created, so the policy is applied, all the records are in place. So it allows you to easily make the asset management, and it allows you to actually automate some of the routine operations. So that's three things that I would definitely suggest to automate. I would just briefly cover the free tiers of RMM monitoring about creating the different alerts. So there are some baselines. The actual a must of the automations that would create the tickets that require your immediate attention. Something that I already imagine the agent, the computer, actually being offline for something for some reasons, or some other metrics that may require an immediate assistance from a technician. But there may be some custom issues on the endpoints that are not so important. For example, the incorrect system time. So the RMM can tell you, hey, your computer clock is 5 minutes late, if you set up such a threshold, of course. But do you need to have an immediate action on that? Not always. Of course, there might be some really business critical applications with an extreme low latency that still requires a quite quick reaction. But still, just define what is the most important, what is not so important, and what is really can be left behind the brackets, and maybe something you may not need at all. Or another example is the hardware changes. For example, for some customers, it's not so important, but for others, it's quite important because people can steal, for example, your RAM memory from your office computers, which happens sometime nowadays, as all of you know that the RAM price goes much higher and it becomes quite rare in some shops. So you want to be aware of any hardware changes someone has stolen. So you may move it into the baseline tier, or you can just leave it as an extended because you know that, hey, this is my computer in the server room. So all in all, you just need to make the right routing and ensure that it's all good. So Morgan, what do you have from your side?
Yeah, so I think number one for me would be automated billing reconciliation. From the 5 years of experience that I have here at Halo, if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that MSPs hate billing reconciliation. Um, it's now the idea is, if you're billing per user, per device, per license, or based on some custom calculated quantity, you don't want to have to reconcile those values, to true those values up each month, figure out the pro rata, all of that kind of stuff. So the number one automation that I would leverage inside of HaloPSA at least would be to automate those billing quantities and those billing cost and price values. I've seen and heard stories of people that have freed up an entire week of their month, maybe not a week, 3 or 4 days of their month, moving from manual billing reconciliation across 4 or 5 different tools to having them integrated and having that automated. The next one would be about notifications, right? So as we've been saying on the webinar, it's important to make sure that the human is still in the loop, right? Human decisions are still being made. But where you can automate is you can automate those notifications to allow the human to make the decision. So, internal notifications for those P1 alerts, external communications to end users to make sure that both sides of the house, the customer and the MSP, are staying accountable. Tickets are moving forwards, and things are happening, and things aren't becoming stagnant. And then going back to my prior point, I would recommend looking into Halo's self-service portal. If you've got Halo, then and you're not using the self-service portal, I think it's a really powerful tool. As I mentioned before, if you're not familiar with Halo, then like I said, go to halopsa.com, get yourself a trial, and check the portal out for yourself. What it's going to allow you to do is going to provide you with the baseline to have the forms and tickets and requests that are created in Halo for your automations and for your technicians to work on being rich in the information that is necessary to fulfill the request or resolve the issue. So if you're not using that today, and I know that old habits die hard, but if you're not using that today, then I would look at leveraging Halo's inbuilt free of charge self-service portal functionality. And those would be my top three. I mean, there's a hell of a lot more. But if I was going into Halo today, fresh-eyed, those would be what well, not fresh-eyed, but going in with the knowledge that I have about Halo, but with a fresh mindset, those would be what I would start with. But yeah, brilliant. Well, I mean, a few questions have been answered throughout the webinar, and I know we're at the top of the hour now, but if there are any questions that anyone has, now's the time, guys. And yeah, thanks, Leonard at MSP360 for being in the Q&A section throughout the webinar and answering those questions as they pop up. I mean, not so much a question, but Ali mentioned a comment at the start of the webinar about Halo not being known for so long and where was the marketing department. For a very long time, and until recently, until the last couple of years, Halo hasn't had a marketing department. It's a very eccentric company here. We like to do things differently, and how Halo has grown to the number one PSA platform in the market is primarily through word of mouth. And the that word of mouth, our customers being our marketing engine, is only possible because of our philosophy, which is You know, customer first. Halo's completely privately owned. The same founder of the company, the same person that hired that first employee in 2007, the same owner of the business today. And that means that our MSPs are our customers, right? You guys are our stakeholders. All of the work that we do, the development, the support, it's all for you guys. And as long as we're doing a good job, you'll tell your peers about us, and the more peers that there are to tell, the more Halo grows. And really, that is how Halo has grown year on year for 7 years. We're on year 8 now of 100% organic growth. So yeah, just a little bit more about Halo there.
Wow, that's really amazing. That's great work. And as I mentioned, HaloPSA becomes really quite popular. I see a lot of mentionings of HaloPSA in Reddit different threads. So yep, that's amazing. We also try to leverage the word of mouth, but yeah, we also have our marketing department.
Nice. Awesome.
Right,
Well, I
again.
mean, if there are no questions, last chance, guys. If there are no more questions, uh, I guess we'll wrap things up here. Um, Thanks everyone for joining. And Dimitri, thank you for joining as well. A lot of great
Yep.
insights that you've shared today. So thanks again.
Yep, thank you. Thanks everyone from my side as well, and thank you, Morgan. Also, I think that together we can really be better together and bring a lot of value and success to our joint customers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks again, guys. See you on the next one.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thanks.